Ladies and gentlemen, yes, new background, new bedroom, new house, new apartment, new life, but it's fine. The content is still gonna be the same, alright? This video will essentially cover some controversial topics surrounding Roblox trading, such as I don't know, plugging, limited item hyping and manipulation, and a lot more that you're going to see in this video. I will talk about how controversial or morally questionable these topics are, of course, in my personal opinion, and I will be ranking them from 1 all the way through 10. 1 being the least controversial and 10 being the most controversial or, ethically, morally questionable. Now, before this video begins, I just have to tell you guys that, this video is extraordinarily personal. I'm talking about morals here. This video only reflects my own thoughts and opinions about these, topics, and is not factual by any means. I'm not saying any facts or whatever. I'm talking about my own opinions. So I would absolutely love to know what you guys think about everything I'm going to talk about in this video down below here in the comments. Now, first of all, let's go over to the Rollimon section, which is going to cover the Rollimon server, the website like the trade ad section, and also the value changers and value council, me included, So first of all, automatic trade advertisements. Now, we're gonna be starting off with something that I particularly am a little bit annoyed about, but I don't really see many other people being annoyed by, leading me to believe that this is mostly seen as, ethical. In case you do not know what I'm talking about, I mean those who use this particular game on Roblox in order to create automatic trade ads to rollimons.com. Now, I personally think this is a little bit because it does create the problem of, not knowing if the person who created an ad for a certain item actually wants that item, or if it's just part of the randomized automated advertisements. I believe this could also lead to another very major problem if used too much. If everybody starts to automate their trade ads, who will actually send the trades? I see that as a little bit of a problem because if everybody is automating their trade ads, no one is actually making trade ads, leading to nobody actually sending out trades. That is already a big problem with Trade Hangout, and I really do not want that to happen with the server or, with the trade ad section. Now, this, in my personal opinion, gets a 4 out of 10 on the scale due to this being a more of a personal thing. I never see other people complaining about this. This is mostly a me thing, so Now we're going over to fake and also troll trade ads. Fake trade advertisements, they are created by people who usually want to boost or worsen the performance of a certain limited. And troll ads are just usually created by people who just want to annoy certain owners of a specific item. That is pretty much it. Now, I personally think that fake trade advertisements, they are much worse than automatic trade ads due to their fake intention of fake hyping items. So in my personal opinion, that gets an 8 out of 10 on the, controversial scale, because I just think that, creating fake ads should be punishable thing, which of course it is. But I don't really see too much of an issue with troll trade advertisements as long as they're not really a recurrent issue. So that does get a 2 out of 10 on the scale, just because, it is sort of annoying, and I do understand people who feel annoyed by it. From what I've seen though, a lot of people believe that both of those types of ads, both fake and also troll ads, they are mostly seen as just sort of unethical. Now let's go over to item manipulation. Item manipulation can happen in many ways, such as getting a group of friends to overpay for an item to make it seem better than what it actually is, faking inbound trades in order to get better offers, paying users with real life cash on the side of trades to make the completed trades seem a lot better than they actually are. I do not think I've ever seen someone go out of their way to actually defend item manipulation per se, but even then, this definitely gets a 10 out of 10 on the scale, because this is just morally wrong. I do not think that this should be allowed. Now please let me know what you guys think about this entire situation down here in the comments. Now we're going to a hot one: value changer and council bias towards items and also individuals. This is kind of a tough one to talk about because of course I myself am a member of the value council team, but I can more than 100% guarantee that there exists bias towards certain items, hoarders, and a lot more, whether that bias is either positive or also negative. The best example that I can find for item bias, in my personal opinion, once again, is that many items that were valued for doing bad in relation to their recent average prices got their values removed recently, but many other items that got valued for that same reason ended up managing to keep their valuations. That just shows that, the values team can be biased at times, both positively and also negatively. And the absolute same goes towards course, item hoarders. A hoarder like Spartan Holdings is always seen as, less of a threat than like other item hoarders, despite the fact that he does indeed often release a handful of copies of his hoards. From every single discussion I personally took part on, it seems that his hoards are always, like overlooked or seen very lightly, even if extremely recently acquired. So I personally think that this gets a 9 out of 10 on the scale of, controversial or just like morality in of itself. Now we're getting to another hot one. Item bashing and also hyping, which basically refers to people intentionally saying bad or good things about an item on the Rollymon's Discord server in order to hinder or improve its performance. This one is already very bad by itself, but I believe it ends up being much worse when the person who was hyping a specific item starts bashing it immediately after getting rid of that item. So this, in my personal opinion, just because of that reason, goes to a 10 out of 10 on the scale, because it pisses me off so much and also just makes you seem just completely fake and solely profit oriented. Now let's go over to the trade and also market section, which basically just involves trades in the market in of itself. First one being not countering trades or time wasting on a deal. This refers to when you've already been trying to complete a deal with someone and they just keep on wasting your time by not countering your trades or just outright declining them and ghosting you. I honestly do not think this is as bad of a deal as people portray it to be, considering it is really just, like having your time wasted basically. And there are no other problems other than, just having your time wasted, as I just mentioned. So personally, I'll give this, like maybe a 2.5, 2 out of 10, just because, of the annoyance that it is to, have a deal canceled just because of time wasting. Now we're going over to a hot one, which is keeping trades inbound. Now adding on to the last point, people who keep their trades inbound instead of just declining them, they do that in hopes of making a quick buck in case one of their items start doing bad while the period of the trade has not expired. This is often called an outbound snipe. Now this opinion of mine is certainly going to differ from a lot of y'all's, but I personally think that if this happened to you, you are the only one at fault here. You had a lot of time in order to check your outbounds and decline the trades involving bad or worsening items, yet you just decided to willingly keep them outbound. I would advise you to always keep an eye on your outbound trades. You could get screwed over very hard due to, just having outbound trades. I think this deserves a 1 out of 10 on the scale due to, not being morally questionable in my personal opinion. You were just legitimately taking an inbound trade. Now let's go over to sharking, ladies and gentlemen, sharking. Now this one is definitely controversial, needless to say. Sharking is essentially, deceiving people into believing that your item gets less than what it actually does. But this goes down a much bigger rabbit hole. There are many types of sharking, such as, showing outdated proofs of items to people, gaslighting people into thinking that their items are going to start doing good after they get another completed, or going after old traders who do not know anything about Rollymon's values in order to get a value win in exchange for a recent average price win. This used to be very common back in the day, especially when Rollymon's was not really adopted by the community, or even before value websites were a thing. Now sharking is an extremely diverse spectrum with light up to severe levels, and it's up to personal interpretation to judge if those are morally appropriate or not. Now personally, of course, I think that sharking should not really be allowed under any circumstances, so I'll give this a 9 out of 10 due to a few exceptions in my personal opinion. Now let's go over to another one, which is scamming. Someone made a very good point while I was making this video. We can talk about scamming in two ways, in my personal opinion. Scamming an innocent person and also scamming a scammer. Now the moral implications behind this are very diverse from what I've seen. A lot of people think that, scamming is scamming, period. But a lot of people also think that scamming a scammer is justified under specific circumstances, such as giving what you scammed back to the victims of, the original scam. Now for me personally, I think that scamming an innocent person obviously is a 10 out of 10 on the scale, no discussion in regards to that. But scamming a scammer, on the other hand, under the specific circumstance mentioned before, would genuinely be a 1 out of 10 on the scale in my own personal opinion. I do not think scamming a scammer and paying the victims back should be frowned upon. Matter of fact, I believe it should be absolutely praised. Now let's go over to projected item flipping. Now this is a very odd topic in my personal opinion, because I feel like this could also be classified as a form of sharking in a way towards, you know, like newer traders. However, this has also been a thing for way too long, and I do not really think that it's going anywhere. I do not think that this is necessarily like morally absurd, like I don't know, scamming or whatever, but it definitely has its controversies. Now I'll personally give this a 5 out of 10 on the scale due to their fragility when it comes to, you know, like more impressionable and newer traders. Now let's go over to one of the toughest ones in my opinion, which is keeping a missent trade. This one is very tough because I also feel like it is an extremely polarized topic. Theoretically speaking, if you missent your items to someone, that is technically your fault, but it's also ethically questionable if you should be allowed to keep missent items or not. Now let's imagine this. The items were technically sent out to you willingly by the person who missent the items, even if, you know, accidentally. But what if you got missent someone's entire inventory? Like, imagine if someone's entire inventory is like, I don't know, 200,000, and they send you this entire 200,000 in one trade as an accident. Would you keep this, or would you return the items to, you know, the person who missent? Would you keep an item worth like 1 million value if someone with a 20 million Robux inventory missent it to you? Now I will let you guys be the judges of that, but I think that specifically because of how controversial this topic is, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Not because it is necessarily like inherently wrong, but because of how polarized this topic is. And I genuinely do not think that there is a right or wrong in this situation. It's really up to like extreme personal interpretation. Now let's go over to LPPing items on purpose. This one is very interesting. In case you do not know, LPPing an item basically means selling it for its lowest possible price, drastically decreasing its recent average price. I've seen people do this as a form of market manipulation, but also as revenge towards certain individuals. But I think it is wrong either way. Even if you have a problem with like one specific owner of an item, it is extremely unfair for you to punish every single owner of that item with an LPP. Not only that, but it is also actively used as a form of market manipulation as mentioned before. So I firmly believe that this is a 10 out of 10 on the scale and should be massively frowned upon. Especially when done massively, you know, like not only once. Now let's go over, ladies and gentlemen, to the last section of the video, which is the black market section. Now let's begin with plugging. This is another very polarized topic. Plugging refers to intentionally trading for stolen limiteds. However, you can be trading for active or also inactive items. Active means that the person who had their items stolen is still active on Roblox, and inactive means that the person is long gone from Roblox and has not logged on for the last, like, I don't know, 5-10 years. Now I personally believe that plugging is only inherently wrong when you go out of your way to get items stolen off of active accounts. Inactive plugging is questionable due to the fact that the items were still, you know, like technically stolen. The owner of the account just has not been active in years. So, you know, there's sort of an ethical gray area when it comes to that. I do not think that is necessarily wrong, since you were not the person who, you know, initially, you know, originally stole the items. You were just obtaining the items after the incident. Now, I think I'll give this like a 6 out of 10 due to still, you know, being relatively controversial, just not as much as, like, you know, other topics discussed in this video. Now last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, rollbacking items after cashing out your items for real cash. I do not really think this needs any explanation as to why, you know, it is unethical. It's quite literally just another form of scamming. So 10 out of 10, you know, 10 out of 10, and that is pretty much it. So ladies and gentlemen, that was pretty much the video for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate the fact that you guys watched my video up to this point. I really appreciate your guys' company. It was very appreciated. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for every single member of the YouTube channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. You've been helping me a lot. Thank you very much to whoever stuck up until this point of the video. It was super cool, super nice. You know, you guys are super cool. Love every single one of you. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, join my Discord server, follow me on Twitter, do all of that, you know, very juicy stuff that you always do after watching my videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.